Hi everyone, this is LuxJose, and today I'm bringing you a brand new video about how to optimize your World of Warcraft characters. So you're trying to increase your DPS, or you want to figure out what is your stats weight, or what even is a stats weight. What piece of gear should you equip, or what azerite trait should you choose? Well, this is the video for you. So let's get right into it. Okay. So if you want to follow along, I want you to get some tools ready, right? So we're going to use a website called Raidbots.com. We're also going to use a website called WarcraftLogs.com. And we're going to need you to install an add-on. You're going to need to install an add-on called SimulationCraft. Okay, so if you want to follow along, I invite you to download this add-on, SimulationCraft. You can use the Twitch software, and you can keep this updated. So let's get that going. You can pause the video, do that, get ready, and we'll get right into it. Okay, so first of all, let's say I just started playing again my alt DK, and I want to play on Oli, right? So I just got this new weapon. I want to play on Oli. I was playing Frost earlier, and now I want to try this new spec. I want to figure out what azerite trait should I pick. What should I put in gems or enchants? What trinket? I have so many trinkets. I have so many offerings. What should I pick to do the most DPS possible, right? What food should I use? What kind of potions, you know? So all those questions can be answered pretty easily, okay? But first of all, we're going to need to figure out a base talent set, and then we're going to be able to play around with it. So what I recommend that you do is that you use resources, for example, like WoWed guides that are made by a very good player that have played the class for a very long time. I've done this work with simulation, and I've tried to see which talent are the best. You can also use your class Discord. So if you don't know what your class Discord is, you download the vocal application called Discord. You go on Google and you type, for example, Dead Knight Discord. You're going to get a link to it, and those Discord have a lot of information about what talent to use for classes, right? This is important because the tool we're going to use, Raidbots, is based on SimulationCraft, and it does a simulation of your current characters with your talent set and your azerite and your gear, and it tries to do as much DPS as possible, and then it tells you, depending on what you choose, what you can improve or what information you get out of it. But for it to work, you at least need to have like a baseline talent set, right? So it at least know what rotation to use. So what I recommend is that you get one of those websites, and you can start from there, and then we're going to be able to fiddle around if any of those different talent might be better for you. We never know, right? So for example, I don't do a lot of raiding these days. I do mostly Mythic Plus. So this is the AoE and Cleave Mythic Plus section. So I'm going to go in here and check out what talent would they recommend. And currently I'm running a similar trait, right? Similar talents. These row are not picked because they are optional, so you can do whatever you want in there. But currently, apparently, All Will Serve, Even Fever, Soul Reaper, Epidemic, and Unholy Frenzy are the way to go if you want to do some good AoE cleaving in Mythic Plus. Okay, so let's see. What talent should I use for single target? Okay, so apparently it's pretty similar. The only thing that changed is sometimes people pick those two for single target, and they will go with Epidemic for AoE situations, right? Okay, so that's pretty good. That's good for me, even for Tyrannical, where bosses have more HP. We're still going to be doing good single target damage because the 90 row is not that important. Okay, perfect. So I have my talent ready and set up. My DK is just like that, is just ready to go, right? So we're going to go and type enter to open up chat, and we're going to type /simc. So if you downloaded the add-on that I recommended at the start of the video, this should open up. It's going to be a small window with all the information about your current character, right? So it's going to tell you which piece of gear you have equipped, what azerite power traits did you pick, and do you have any enchant, do you have any gem, what gear do you have in your bags, what are your talents, professions, all that good stuff. When you open it, it's going to be selected by default, but you can just press Control A and then Control C to copy it, right? we're going to go back into raidbots.com. So I invite you to create an account. It's 100% free, but if you want to support the creator on Patreons, you can get some more options. We're going to get into that very soon. Okay, so what I like to do is trying to figure out what my stat weight is. Okay, so we're going to click on stat weight. What is stat weight, right? So stat weight is your stats priority system. It's how much each point of stats equal an increase in DPS. So it's going to give you a value for strength, haste, mastery, critical strike, versatility, how much each point has in value. This is going to allow you to see what gear is better for you, right? So you're going to be able to use some add-on like Pawn, which is going to tell you right when you mouse over. So let's switch one of those ring, right? So if I switch my ring, if I mouse over it, it says on only 17%. What does that mean? It's taking into account my stats weight priority that I imported into the game, into the add-on Pawn. So you can also download this one, but it's optional, right? Because this is only to figure out individual upgrade and not to use the actual Raidbots tool. So if you have Pawn installed, it's going to let you know with your stats weight which item is an upgrade for you. So you can replace piece of gear, and it's going to let you know what you should equip. So this is a very important part of optimizing your characters. Once you paste your simulation, your character stats right in here, right? You can go down into the simulations option. This is how you configure the fight. Are you using bloodlust? Does the fight last 3 minutes? So if you want to optimize your character, you have to know what kind of content you do. If you do a lot of Mythic Plus, then you're not going to do a 6-minute long patchwork fight, right? Unless you want to really optimize for single target boss. So right in here in fight style, you can pick, I recommend that you use patchwork and ectic ad cleave. So patchwork is going to simulate your DPS on a boss that have no movement and no mechanics, and it is single target, right? So you're gonna do DPS with no cleaving, no ads, and there's only one boss. He doesn't move, and you do as much DPS as you can on it for example, for 5 minutes, right? So this is gonna be good to simulate raid boss. So you're gonna be able to go into Uldir, and Talak, for example, is gonna be a good example. It doesn't have much cleaving. Fetid Devour doesn't have much cleaving. But still does have some light movement involved into them, because Fetid is usually gonna run to get to his ad, and he's also gonna knock you back in heroic, so you're gonna have to move back and all that good stuff. So if you want to simulate for those, you can choose also light movement. So this is gonna be a patchwork fight, but every 85 seconds you're gonna move 40 yards away, so you're gonna have to run back to the boss. So this is a good way to simulate a boss like Fetid, right? So we're going to go back and keep it simple. We're going to use patchwork. So we're going to do you can do like a 5-minute fight, or you can even do, what I like to do is I do 4 bosses and I do 1 minute. This is going to simulate a trash pack in Mythic Plus, right? So this is going to be a 1-minute fight. You can also do 40 seconds, right? So it's going to be like a fortified week with like a big trash pack, and you're going to do as much AoE damage as possible, right? So that's another cool way of doing it. So we're going to keep it simple for now. 1 boss, 5 minutes, and you can decide what buffs you have. So, for example, you have a warrior, you have battle shout, or, well, this is close enough to the scroll that I'm using, right? So sometimes I'm using the scroll. It's 7% instead of 10%, so you can keep those on. Do you want to use bloodlust or not? So this is up to you. Click whatever setting you want, and then you're ready to go. You don't need to touch anything else. Generate stats weight. So if you're not a Patreon user, you might get in a queue system because there's a lot of people using the website. If you are a Patreons for Raidbots, I think you go ahead of the queue and you pretty much skip everyone else. You don't have to wait, so that's pretty cool. But again, it's free. You just have to wait a little bit more. Okay, there we go. We just got our stats weight. So for my Death Knight, I should be doing X amount of DPS on a single target fight with all buff, blood loss, and no movement, no mechanic. So that's the DPS I should be doing, right? My stats weight. So every point of weapon DPS that I gain. So if I get a new weapon, I'll get this much DPS per point of DPS on the weapon. This is the weight. So it says it. 1 point of weapon DPS will increase your DPS by 8.54, right? Strength, it will increase your DPS by this much. Then it's critical strike, versatility, aced, and mastery. Okay. We get something here called pawn string. So this is the string that you can import into the pawn add-on. I'm going to show you right now how to do it. You simply click copy to clipboard, go back into World of Warcraft, click pawn. When you are in here, you can go into manual right there. You can click import. You can paste it in, click OK. And then you go back in here and you use show this skill in tooltip, right? If you don't want to show the baseline one, you can simply get those off, and only this one is going to be shown. So this is the one that you're using for on the Oli. There you go. So now if I go back in here and I change this, it says 10% because I was using the default. Pawn string, so it wasn't updated to my character. So now it's only a 10% upgrade. It is still an upgrade, even though it's lower item level, but it's only a 10% upgrade. It's not a 17% upgrade. Okay, so we got that all set up. So now I know that I should enchant and gem critical strike, right? So right now I think I have mastery enchant, so I should probably get those enchanted with critical strike. Every time that you enchant or gem stuff, you should run again your stats weight because they might change. Sometimes you have haste rating that you want to get to, and after that, a haste isn't your best stats anymore. After you hit a certain plateau, then critical strike becomes better, right? A lot of classes have a well-balanced stats weight, so every time you have too much of one stats, you need to balance it out with other stats, like Shaman, for example. So Elemental and I think Elemental Shaman, even Restoration Shaman. You cannot simulate healer using this. This is only for DPS. So if you put a tank in here, it's only going to increase your DPS. It's not going to increase your survivability. So this is to be taken into account. But if you have a character that has a very well-balanced stats weight, so you're going to see that all those numbers are going to be very close to one another, except maybe your priority stats and the weapon DPS. But as you can see, even strength isn't that higher than critical strength, right? So it's not that much better, but everything is pretty balanced for those except mastery, which is very low. But you'll see that mastery might become better in an AoE situation. Actually, let's try it out right now, right? So we're going to keep the exact same setting here, but we could do Ectic add cleave, right? So, or we're going to do what I said. We're going to do like a 40-second 5 boss. So let's just simulate a trash pack. We don't want bloodlust, right? Generates that way because you're probably not going to use bloodlust on a 5 pack trash of mythic, right? So this is just going to be to simulate how your stats weight are going to be affected when you're doing AoE versus single target. So for Unholy Death Knight, your mastery is going to increase your shadow damage. So your Death and Decay, your Epidemic, and your Cleaving is going to be affected. Your mastery is going to increase your damage. So I think mastery should come out on top or pretty close to top in AoE situation. So we're just going to wait for the report to actually finish. There you go, generating report. There you go. Mastery is very, very high. It's even higher up than strength, right? So since I'm doing a lot of Mythic Plus, it's going to depend on what I want to do. But as you can see, right after mastery and strength, critical strike is still pretty higher up. So I might not want to gem for mastery and enchant with mastery. I still might want to go with critical strike. This way, I'm going to be tuned for bosses in Uldir. I'm going to be tuned pretty nicely for general DPS in Mythic Plus for AoE situation. And if I get a piece with Mastery, well, don't be too sad. It might not be your best piece of gear for single target, but for any AoE situation like Mythic Plus, it's going to be pretty good. So you can also import that string and have it be something else, right? So you can click import, paste it in. There you go. Oh, so usually you would do a copy, right? So you can do a copy. You can name this one AoE, for example. And this one, you can rename it to be, so unholy DK single. That's going to be a little bit more specific than just saying AoE. So this is going to be unholy DK AoE, right? And so I just imported those into here. I need to import them back into single target. And when you mouse over onto your tooltip, it's going to let you know that it's going to be, for example, your best. This is my best rank for AoE and my best rank for single target. And this is your second best for single target and your second best for AoE. So you're going to be able to compare all of those pieces of gear with your stats with using pawn. Let's get back into simulation, right? So now that I know how I should gem and enchant, let's see what my top gear could be, right? So I'm going to make sure we have this selected because we just copied a string for pawn. Let's get back this in here, making sure everything is all right. Okay. So as you can see, I just clicked on top gear, right? And I paste my character information right there. I can see all the talents that I'm using, and I can see all the gear that I have in my bags. Okay. So if you're not a Patreon, you're going to be limited to a certain amount of iteration. What does that mean? It means that every time you click an item, it has a number of iterations. So the more item you pick, the more combination it does, and it's exponential, right? So the more item you click, this goes up very high, and it's going to take more time, and you're going to have a limited amount of those because it requires server power to run these math and calculation, right? So if you're not a Patreon, you're going to be limited into the amount of iteration that you can have. Even as a paying Patreons, I have a limited iteration, but I have a lot more. So what I recommend that you do is first, I want you to simulate your off piece, right? So we're not even going to worry about azerite pieces. We're just going to leave those by default. I have some trinket that I can simulate, and I have a couple rings that I can simulate. So I'm going to go ahead and click all of them, right? I'm going to click all of those. We're going to go in here and gem. You can keep or replace, but as you could see, I don't have the right enchant. So I'm going to replace. I'm going to tell the simulation that I want to have gem with 40 crits. I want to have ring enchant with 37 crit, and my main and enchant is going to be Rune of the Fallen Crusader for Death Knights. My talents, everything seems to be looking good. Let's go back and do one boss for 5 minutes using blood loss. Everything is good. Perfect. You can also, yeah, okay. So you can check out on all of those. You can even change the number of array stack that there is. So this will, when you're doing a boss in Old Deer, if you have this trait, right, you have reorganization. Is it that reorigination array? It's going to be a stacking buff that increase either like your mastery, haste, critical strike, whatever is your IS stats, and it's going to increase every week depending on the number of boss that you've killed. It's kind of a weird system, right? But you can simulate with changing those out if you wish for it. So we're going to leave pretty much everything by default here, and we're going to do find top gear. So right now, what this is going to do is Raidbots is going to try to simulate the fight using each set of gear. So it's going to replace a ring, attempt the boss, and see how much DPS it did. It's going to do that multiple times per piece of gear, and it's going to figure out which piece of gear gave you the best DPS output, right? So we're just going to let it finish. It's almost over. It should come back pretty close to what I had set up, because those rings seems to be the best for me as an Oli. There you go. It's done. It's going to generate the report. Okay, so I just found out that apparently these gloves are better than the one I was using. So I was using Crit Mastery Glove, but apparently the Verse Mastery Glove are a little bit better. But yeah, okay, so it's almost negligible. Why? Well, it is negligible. So the top gear is the gear that this is suggesting to me. It says that this is the highest DPS that it did. And the equipped one was the gear that I had equipped when I launched the simulation. And as you can see, it did a 1 DPS difference, right? So this is going to be this is going to be up to you, right? Would you prefer having more versatility, or would you prefer having more critical strike? So versatility is going to do, so those are going to do almost the exact same amount of DPS. Those have a little bit less of mastery, so you're going to do a little bit less damage in AoE situation. So I would pick the other gloves, but as you can see, it detected that there's no change. And you can see that every combination of gear is going to show you how much DPS it did. So if you just equipped all your worst gear that you have in your bag, it's going to do the least amount of DPS. And that's actually a lot. It's almost 1K, a 1K difference, right? So that's pretty cool. Well, not a 1K, more like 500, but 500 DPS is still pretty good. It's still a pretty large margin with those number, right? So now I know which piece I can equip for those general pieces, so I can go back in top gear, right? I know that I already have my best setup. I could change those gloves for those. I'm just going to keep it with crit mastering because I prefer those stats. And then we're going to go with the azerite pieces, right? So I currently have the Grid Runner Gallia, okay? I'm going to select all the azerite trait possible for my class and my specialization. Those are grayed out because this is a Frost azerite trait and this is a Blood azerite trait. So those are not going to be clickable. You don't click those. You simply click the one that are better for you, right? That are available to you. So I'm going to do that for all the azerite gear that I currently have. As you can see, I don't have those unlocked yet, but it's not going to be any difference for DPS, right? It's just an absorb shield or movement speed. So the movement speed might give you an increase in DPS if you simulate with light movement or something like that. Other than that, a shield is not going to give you an increase in DPS. So this is going to be up to you. So for example, the March of the Damned is going to give you a bit more speed for 15 seconds when you use it. And it reduces the cooldown a bit. So this might be a DPS increase if you're facing a fight with movement, which pretty much all fight have some sort of movement into them, or knockbacks effect for DK, for example, because Dead Advance block the knockbacks effect, makes you immune to them, so reducing the cooldown becomes a DPS increase, and the shield does not. But then again, being dead, you don't do any DPS. So you got to balance it out and see what you like. So we're just going to pick all the DPS trait, and we're going to launch the simulation with those talent, seeing which azerite you should pick up. This is going to take a lot more time because the azerite trait end up being a lot more iteration than just having to click some piece of gear. We're going to just let it run. While this run, I want to talk to you about the utility of Warcraft logs. So what I tend to do sometimes when I want to validate what other people's are doing, see what works for them, is I go on Warcraft logs. I just click on this little menu right there, and I go, for example, in Uldir. So when I'm doing Uldir Heroic with bugs during the week, I want to figure out what talent should I be using on each boss. Sometimes I'm like, okay, so this boss has a bit of AoE, so maybe I should pick something else if I want to try to improve my DPS. So I'm going to go see what others are doing to simulate with their IS DPS ranking, right? So we're going to go in here. We're going to select Uldir. We're going to select ranking. And then, for example, I'm not going to simulate Mythic because Mythic has more... well, this is not a simulation. I'm speaking about logs right now. Just made a small mistake. We're going to click on Heroic because Mythic has a lot more mechanics that I'm not dealing with when I'm doing an Heroic run, right? We're going to go in classes, and I'm going to pick my spec, right? So I want to see what Unholy Death Knights are using when they're in Uldir. So this is going to give you the top 10 the top 10 parses that we called. So people are using Warcraft log to log their fight. This logs every single ability that they do, how much DPS they did, and all that kind of stuff. Don't take this for like hard cash. This is sometimes people have abuse. They have a specific group that is just targeted at killing the boss in a way that they're gonna end up being the top 10 or something. But it gives you a general idea on what talent you should use in a certain fight, right? So what you can do is you can see the top 10 Death Knight right now in the world with their score, how much score did they get per boss and everything. So that's pretty cool, right? So we're going to see for Talek, for example, which is the first boss in Uldir. The top talent are those, which are exactly the one that we picked. Asphyxiate and Dead Pack don't really matter, but All Will Serve and Even Fever are picked pretty much every time. Some people decided to go with Clawing Shadow, so maybe they have a little bit more mastery or something like that, or they like the fact that they can attack from range, because this fight is not so so fun for Death Knights, because you have to run around. The boss runs around everywhere. He tries to knock you back. Even if you have Dead Advance, you don't have it for all the knockbacks. So you're getting kited a lot, and this can be pretty helpful. It's also pretty good when you're on the elevator, right? Because you can attack the units that spawns blood on the ground. So sometimes you're not able to be in melee. So this gives you a range attack. So it's pretty good, right? So it's going to let you know what people are using, and you can even click on each specific logs and try to analyze where do they use their cooldown, how do they try to play their class on every specific boss. You can see what Azerite trait they're using. So you can see that some of them are stacking 3 Archives of Titan, which is pretty good, right? Some of them are spreading it around with some Archives, some Fester Might, and Arrowing Decay, all that good stuff. And you can go down and see what, even trinkets. You can see trinkets, right? You can see everything in here. So, for example, I want to know on Mother, right? How do they do it, right? So for Death Knights, it doesn't change a lot. So that's maybe not like the best example that you can get. But you can do this for all classes, right? So for rogues, for shaman, for paladin, all classes can have the exact same information available on Warcraft log. For example, shaman, you might want to use Stormkeeper over Ascendance on a boss with a little bit more AoE, but you're not sure is the AoE long enough for it to be worth it. Well, by going into Warcraft log, you're going to be able to see that if they made it to the top 10, there is a good chance that the talent that they used helped a lot into being one of the best spec that you could play, right? So this is a very good tool to learn a bit more about your class and spec. Okay, there you go. So apparently I'm not using the best trait that you could get. So Archive of Titans, he wants me to pick Arrowing Decay. That might be because when I did the simulation, I forgot actually. So that's very good. So we're going to simulate this one again. The shoulder were okay. The simulation didn't ask me to change anything. So that's good. We're just going to simulate those pieces again. We're going to simulate the helm and the chest because those were the only 2 ones that had something to do with it. The array, I'm at 4 currently on my Death Knight. So it's going to provide me with 300 of my IS stats, which I think should be mastery with the current gear that I have right now. It might be mastery or crit, something like that. And we're going to launch the simulation again. It's not going to take that much time because we have fewer pieces. But that might be why Archive was simming a little bit lower, because Archive should be actually pretty good. It should be one of your best trait for pretty much all classes. So we're just going to validate if I was right on that. So you need to make sure that you take this into account if you get similar result. Okay, so I was right. Archive of Titans is going to simulate ire if you have the correct amount of reorigination array. But this is a good information. It means that whenever I'm doing Mythic Plus, I don't have the array up. I don't have any stacks. And then the arrowing decay becomes better. Okay. So I need to change, apparently, my azerite trait in here. So apparently, life speed is going to be a little better than azerite globals. Okay. So we could test it out. How much DPS difference is it? It's a 0.1 DPS. So it did 10 like something. It did like between less than 10 DPS difference from having azerite globals over from blood siphon. So I mean, it is such a low difference that you're gonna have to simulate it also for AoE, see if the difference is noticeable, because this right now is only for single target, right? So don't simply run a simulation for single target and just check everything that the simulation tells you to do. You have to think about being optimized for multiple scenario, because I only have one chest right now, so I can't switch around my chest whenever I'm doing Mythic Plus or raiding or AoE situation, right? So I want to be optimized for every situation for now, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do this now, but what I would do is I would also simulate and see for AoE situation which one is the best, and we could test that thing out. Because right now I can choose between Blood Siphon for Mastery, so that's probably going to be better in AoE scenario. Life speed gives me more ace, so maybe I'm lacking a little bit of ace. And Azerite Globals is currently second in the three choices, right? I told you I would be talking about the numbers that are on this disc right here. It's from an add-on called Azerite Power Weights. Right now, what I'm doing is it's taking value from a website called Blood Mallet. On the website Blood Mallet, you can simply, let me show you actually. Let's do this live. I don't even care. I don't even care. Data for all. Let's go. Okay, so we're gonna go in here. We can go in on only for Dead Knights. We can go in Azerite trait, tier 3. So that's the first ring, right? We're gonna click in here, Azerite trait weight. Click that. Weight are copied to clipboard. We go back into World of Warcraft. You can install the add-on Azerite Power Weight, and we can click import, paste it in. There you go. I already have those. Those are the patchwork on only Dead Knight simulation for all those traits. But the point that I want to say is it's going to give a value, sorry, it's going to give a value to each trait based on a simulation with a template. This template does not have your character stats. This template might have a little bit more aced, right? So currently, Blood Mallet, the template that they're using, says that Azerite Global is going to give me more DPS, right? Because the value is currently higher than the other two choices. But with my simulation, this comes back as a DPS increase. Maybe because I'm lacking a little bit of ace on my gear. So this is why it is so important to be doing simulation, okay? Well, I mean, so important. It's literally a 10 DPS difference between all of those. But I mean, if you want to optimize your character, you might as well do it fully, right? Don't do things halfway done. Okay, so that's some pretty good information. And once all of that is done, so you can go reforge your item, you can go have your good enchant set up, all that good stuff. You can start to play around with talents. So what you can do is you can paste your character in, and you can duplicate talent set. So this is the one that I'm currently using. We're going to duplicate it, and we're going to compare Unholy Frenzy with Gargle, because why not? Let's duplicate it and compare it to Army of the Damned. Why not? And let's compare the default one, but all will serve and Clawing Shadow, because why not? We're going to do a patchwork, one boss, 5 minutes. We're going to leave everything on by default, and we're going to click compare talents. So even though WoWhead tells me to use Unholy Frenzy, I want to see how much difference, how much DPS do I actually lose when I don't use Unholy Frenzy. Because Clawing Shadow, for example, in the first row could be useful if you're getting kited a lot. So you might want to pick it in certain situation, even because... Okay, so there you go. So what this selection here, so I added duplicated. Actually, you don't need to set up your default talent into the thing, right? So we're just gonna do it again just to show you how it works. So in this here, you already have your talent set up, so your second one can be the one different, right? So we're gonna compare Gargoyle with my current setup, which is Unholy Frenzy. So we're gonna compare both of those. This is gonna be quick. There's only 2 talent choices, and it's gonna show me which one is currently the best for me. Generating report, there you go. So if you have Summon Gargoyle, it's going to do, well, not even 100 DPS less, right? So it's going to show you, it's going to be only a 0.4% DPS difference. So Unholy Frenzy is this much better than Summon Gargoyle, but you might as well play with the best talent available, right? So this is going to be up to you. If you don't find good use for Unholy Frenzy, or every time that you use it, you have to, for example, you in Mother, your group has to move through the gate very fast, and you're not able to use the full Unholy Frenzy or something like that, then Gargoyle might want to be better. If you have to hold off too much for your cooldown because there's too much more movement or something, because Gargoyle does its damage no matter what, right? You don't have to hit the target for it to be worthwhile. It's gonna increase in damage every time you do your runic power, so you have to take those in consideration, right? But this is gonna be up to you. So this is gonna show you what's optimal, and then you can make your own decisions. You can simulate also for eye movement. So for example, I can try to see the difference between my current setup and Dead Pack, and we're gonna do, instead of patchwork, we're gonna do light movement. Let's see what that does, right? So every 85 seconds, you're gonna get knocked back 50 yards or something like that in the simulation. So let's see the difference. It's actually not that big of a difference. So probably that rate walk was not even worth it in those cases, because you have that advanced baseline and it's a 1 minute cooldown. So 85 seconds, it's not even worth it. So let's do heavy movement, right? So every 10 seconds, you're going to get knocked back. Let's see if that makes any difference. I'm going to need to change it. It might not even do any difference, but, you know, it's going to depend on the playstyle that you want to do. If it does changes anything, well, it's like 4 DPS increase. So clearly between it doesn't do any difference. It just doesn't do any difference. Okay. So, well, that's done. Now you know, right? But the simulation don't always use your abilities and talent in the perfect way, right? Those are made to just do attacks in a specific patterns, react to proc, react to those kind of things. Simulation do not react to mechanics. There is no mechanics program into Raidbots. So you have to think about that. Don't take anything the tool says for granted. Just try to think a bit about the result and try to see what's good for you. So now you're pretty optimized, right? So you know your best talents because you use a different website to figure out what were the best talents available. You know your top gear, you know your stats weight, you've imported those into Pawn, and you're able to do all of that by yourself now and try to do the most DPS possible. So now that all of that is done, you need to try to understand what change you've made, and you need to try to go test them out. So go do some content, go do some Mythic Plus, go do some raiding, see if you can actually see a difference. You might not see a difference because those are very, very small changes unless you were completely equipped and gem with the wrong stats, right? Then you might get some pretty big difference. So go test those out, see what's up. Every time that you get a new piece of gear, I want you to do this again. So get your stats weight generated again, see if anything moved. Check out for your talents once in a while. Try to read patches to see if talents have changed, if they've been buffed or nerfed or something like that, and make sure to keep Raidbots in your bookmark, right? So this is going to be it for this video. This was a long rambling video. I was just chatting. I had no notes prepared. but at least like I tried to give you some of the knowledge that I had about using simulation tools, and I hope that it was helpful to you. So this is gonna be it for me, guys. Until my next video, I'll wish you good luck in BFA.